PWNcast.
Episode 19 of PWNcast, and this is a first for this series of podcasts. In fact, we're going to do part one of a two-parter today. I am joined with Derek.
Hello,
and
everybody.
We're going to be talking about a series of films which are near and dear to you, aren't they, Derek? Another retrospective.
I seem to be useful for these podcasts.
Yes, you're becoming more increasingly useful, but you're not allowed to leave the quote, broadcast room just yet.
Somebody help me.
We're going to be talking about Star Wars.
Yay.
Star Wars.
This would be much more exciting if we could avoid the prequels, but unfortunately we'll have to dive into those as well.
But until then, we're going to be dealing with the original trilogy, going in chronological order, dealing with George...
Wait a minute. If we're going chronologically in order...
And to which they were released in our universe...
technically they are in our universe, Danny.
No,
they're not. Just in a galaxy far, far away.
Bullshit.
It was a long time ago. So technically, this is in history. We're giving you a history lesson, everybody.
A history lesson with
in love,
laser swords and scruffy Nerf herders.
And magic.
Magic?
Well, no, it's not magic. Well, spoilers.
Oh yes, by the way,
we'll get there.
I just want to, put this out here because apparently with the James Bond retrospective. Hi! There's going to be spoilers for these! If you have not seen the original Star Wars trilogy, number one, what the hell is wrong with you? Number two, why are you listening to this and not watching Star Wars right now?
I mean, if you don't want to watch the movies, I'm very disappointed in you, but I have a feeling we'll give you very good reasons to watch them.
I know people that don't want to have anything to do with Star Wars. They've seen A New Hope and they said, nope, I'm done. I do not want to see anything else from this.
I can understand. I know I can't. I'm sorry.
No, you can't.
I can't. But I guess we should dive right in, and we'll start with
1977.
KOTOR.
Oh, what?
Crap, no, we're going... I'm sorry. I was thinking we were starting in chronological.
Oh, yes, we're going back to the Great Hyperspace War.
By the way, KOTOR is best game. But we've already... Star Wars game? Stop it. We'll get that later.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Probably. Anyway, back to 1977 with A New Hope. When was the first time that you saw...
You mean Flash Gordon 2.0?
When was the first time that you saw A New Hope?
You ask me these questions, and I don't remember. I actually remember walking around in Sam's Club with my Nana, which is my mother's mother. That's what I call her. And I remember seeing Star Wars when they released the original... VCR collection, not the what were they? The Laserdisc collection, I believe. So there's actually really cool covers.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I like them.
There was a VHS
I remember watching.
Yeah.
I believe it was A New Hope, and it was the scene where Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca go to the detention cell to get Princess Leia. And I remember seeing that and being like, "Oh, cool! They're shooting lasers at each other." And then I remember, I believe I said something how I wanted to see it, and my Nana was like, "You've never seen Star Wars?" And I was like, "No." And granted, I was like, "Oh, I don't know. If this was, I was born in beep year, so probably I was 6 years old." When did the Laserdisc edition come out?
I believe the Laserdisc editions came out in the early 90s. But the VHS collection that you're talking about, okay. I know what you're talking about, because there was a Laserdisc one which had true widescreen. It was like the proper aspect ratio and everything else. And if you look online, different torrent sites, whenever you look for the original widescreen cuts or whatever,
you get that.
You're going to get the Laserdisc rip, most likely. It's the most pirated version of Star Wars out there because it's never been released like that since... Well, I take that back. The DVD set that they had also included the theatrical cuts, but those were extremely limited.
Do you know, it was 96 or 95?
I can't remember.
It may have been 96, I think. Because I was old enough to remember this, and usually I remember things when I was like 5, I believe.
Well, I guess the real kicker about this collection was the fact that on the back of the Laserdisc collection, this collection will never be released again.
What?
Oh, how true that was!
Well, I mean, I guess, but then at the same time, no, because then you had the special edition, VCRs, and then you had the DVDs, and then did they come out with Blu-rays for the original saga? I don't know. I honestly, that's one thing I haven't really bothered to keep up with is how many
home releases there are of Star Wars.
I don't think of myself a fan in that sense. I have an Empire Strikes Back poster in my room, and that is about it. I believe I own both VCR sets that my parents bought, and I think I own. I believe we own The Phantom Menace in VHS, and then Attack of the Clones and The Revenge of the Sith on DVD.
Interesting.
Do you have the Blu-ray set?
I used to have the Blu-ray set.
And then you sold it like a good man.
Yes, I got rid of it once Disney had acquired Lucasfilm.
Because we can only hope.
Well, because, no, it's going to happen. And I guess, even though we're completely off on a tangent compared to what we were talking about with A New Hope and the first time we saw it.
Well, this can be a good intro, just talking about...
The Blu-ray sets, they have more changes, which we'll go into those a little bit later. But the really big thing about why I got rid of those is once Disney acquired Lucasfilm, because there was such a huge backlash behind that of, now it's just going to be completely kidified. I mean, we already had some of that with the prequels, where it was more casual. But
politics.
Yeah, because
burning a man in volcanoes.
Yeah. Well, Jar Jar Binks. I mean, he's for kids.
well, I think I have a strong argument as to why they're not meant for kids, and why if you say they're meant for kids, you're wrong. Even though kids enjoy it, they don't enjoy it for what they should enjoy it for, and we will get into that
in the prequel episode. But with the Blu-ray, since Lucasfilm was sold off to Disney. And a lot of people were mad about that. So, I think in a sign of good faith, Disney is currently working on, putting all the special effects stuff that Lucas did with special editions and things like that. Just going back to the negatives, like what they did with the James Bond Blu-rays, and digitally restoring them, but keeping all of the original footage in, so that way it's not unaltered, and then releasing that going, hey... As a sign of good faith, here are your precious originals in widescreen format 1080p Blu-ray, 5.1 surround sound. Enjoy. And they will charge you $100 for that set.
I might buy it. I don't know. I wish I could just buy the original. Well, just the original series. But on to A New Hope. I honestly don't remember when I first saw it. Just like my first James Bond movie, I don't remember that. The first time I remember actually sitting at someone's house and watching, I remember watching Return of the Jedi, and I remember seeing the end scene when the Emperor starts uses Force lightning on Luke, and I remember it scaring the absolute shit out of me, and I wanted nothing to do with that movie at that point, because he was a scary motherfucker, and I was so scared. And I remember after that, one time I was in my parents' room and I was watching the movie, and I think that was the first time I can remember actually watching it, because I had my mother had a vacuum cleaner, and one of the pieces of the vacuum cleaner looked like a gun to me, and I always had it in my hand, and I always go JJJ when the cruiser, the Corellian gunship, was trying to outrun the Star Destroyer, and they were choo, and I would be like JJ. So yeah, but I mean it's been from the onset of time, which you'd be like, oh, I remember when Lord of the Rings came out, everyone was like, oh, Lord of the Rings is the greatest thing ever, and I was like, you be quiet, because that was when I was 11, so I was like, fanboy rage, Star Wars is better.
Hey, there's only one return, and it's of the Jedi.
Exactly.
Borrowing from Clerks 2 there, which is another fantastic movie, but my first experience with A New Hope is a somewhat interesting story, and just reflects how mean my parents really used to be. My grandmother introduced me to Star Wars because she liked to spoil me, pretty much. She had...
That's not something you spoil your child with. That is something they have a right to see.
Anyway, she had the VHS copy of A New Hope, which was not the special edition one, but it's one of the originals, so you could see it with all the original special effects put in. And I love that movie. I thought it was great. I had never seen anything like that before, because until then, it was like, okay, there's the 89 Batman, there's RoboCop, and there's Terminator 2, alright? So I've got 2 rated R movies here, I've got a PG-13 Batman movie, and now I have Star Wars A New Hope. And I love that movie so much that, I asked my parents, did they ever make any more of these movies? Because they're kind of old movies. And my parents just look at me and go, no, they didn't. They didn't make any more at all. That's the only one they ever made, because they just didn't want to make a sequel. And then, in 97, when they came out with the special edition VHS for my birthday, so I would have been about 5 years old at the time, my grandmother bought me the special edition VHS set, and I just look at my parents, and I'm like, you two lied to me. There were 2 more, and they were better. Better than A New Hope. Well, in my opinion, but...
Well, one of them was better than...
We'll get to that.
I'll choke a bitch.
A New Hope as a movie. You open up with the famous shot.
I think this shot, and I'm borrowing from Plinkett here.
Plinkett? Oh, God.
But, no, that shot is so good, because you take out that side scroll, or, you obviously, the side scroll, like, okay, it tells you Rebels, Empire, and then you see this shot, and you automatically know Rebels, Empire. Like, you don't need any long dialogue, you don't need, oh, this is the biggest ship in the galaxy. I believe it's the Oppressor, I think that ship is the Oppressor. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but it's Darth Vader's personal flagship, and I believe it was the flagship of the Imperial Navy until...
That's the Executor.
Though that's the Superstar Destroyer. This is before, I think that... I think this is before the Executor got into service, or if it hadn't, then he hadn't transferred to that ship yet.
EU, what is it?
It is the best part of Star Wars. Unless it's before New Hope. But it shows you such, like, you have this small little ship getting the shit beat out of it, and then you have this big old ship, and, like, what's great is in the scene, like, a laser fires from the small rebel ship and hits the Star Destroyer, and it does
nothing.
It's just, like, there's little sparks, and you're just like, oh, that's not good for them. And then it goes inside, and shit's going down, and you get introduced to the gay robots.
I do not like C-3PO and R2-D2, and I never really have.
I don't know why you don't like R2-D2. He's a little sassy.
He's a little sassy.
Because he's always like, I ain't taking none of your shit.
I don't want no part of your tight-ass country club, you freak bitch.
I don't want none of that. But he has, like, a will of his own, and I always liked that. And one thing I found I will say the one thing I liked about the prequels, is that those droids lived through them. And at the very end of Revenge of the Sith, whatever, this ties into New Hope, so I can say this. At the very end of that, they get wiped in the same ship that they start off in. And I'll give Lucas that. There was a little bit like, oh, it's poetry. It rhymes.
Hopefully it'll work.
I'll give him that. I like that. And I should have waited for that. But whatever, I'm sorry, everybody. But,
they're on board the Tantive 4.
And... That scene is just so, like, and then they tractor beam him in, and it's just like, you're so inferior, we're just gonna pull you inside this ship and take over you. We're just gonna board your ship.
And then the rebels start assembling at the loading door, the loading door for personnel, that is, and they're all just lined up there with guns, and you just hear this noise.
Yeah.
And then the door starts to spark, and then these guys in white armor come in with rifles and just start shooting and decimating everybody.
I will say, I wish I could live. I wish I could go back in time and forget about Star Wars and watch those movies for the first time, because that must have blown so many people's minds, because when you think about how it's like, you have no idea what's going on, and all of a sudden these people in battle armor are, like, jumping out and shooting lasers, and, like, you're like, oh, wow. And then the best part of that is the rebels start falling back, and then it comes back, and a fucking samurai walks in, except he's like a cyborg samurai, and he has a scuba tank on him, and you're like, what the fuck is that? And you can tell by the way the stormtroopers act around him that, like,
He's well, even then, he's wearing all black. Mm-hmm. He's the tallest of all of them. Doesn't say a word.
I think he steps over a few of their bodies,
just like whatever.
Just inferior.
Yeah,
and
then the troopers just
it cuts back to some more fighting. And I always felt bad for those rebel troops because they were so outgunned and outmanned, and they got little blue outfits on.
Arguably the only time that stormtroopers actually hit their mark in any movie.
Yeah, which again is ironic because EU-wise, stormtroopers are not to be messed with, and their armor can stop blaster bolts. And you're like, well,
movies,
okay. Like, obviously, it would be really hard for, Princess Leia to shoot bad guys.
Speaking of Princess Leia, you get introduced to her very, very shortly, giving the droid R2-D2 what appears to be a floppy disk, and then
it's a USB drive, let's know.
Obviously, 2 terabyte. I mean,
or an SD card. I'm sorry,
2 terabyte SD card.
Or to play that a holograph, it has to at least hold like 10 or 15 gigabytes.
Obviously, I mean, uncompressed video here, AVI.
I know.
So, since R2-D2 and C-3PO on their way, they get an escape pod, jettison.
I actually like the scene after that because they go, oh, there's no life pod, and he goes, no life forms on it, we'll let it go, and you're just like, oh. Because, you want to talk about,
it must have short-circuited.
Could you imagine, if they had blown that up? That Jesus, those movies would have been so much different. There wouldn't be movies. It would... Because I guess you could argue that the Death Star would blow up Yavin 4 and...
Yeah, pretty much. And then they can continue to be the Empire.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to Darth Vader, interrogating a man.
Oh, that's such a good scene.
Which is...
You can hear his neck breaking and you're just like, oh.
This guy is lifting this man up off the ground with one hand, choking him, interrogating him.
And then the best part is he just throws him to the side.
Yep, just throws him.
And then he says, what does he say? Find her and tear the ship apart?
Yeah, tear the ship apart until you find it.
This guy means business. Oh, I want those plans. Whatever.
They capture Princess Leia and take her as prisoner.
I like how they use, set weapons to stun, and they stun her, and then you're like, you'll never see that feature again.
Yeah.
That's like one of those, what is it called when they... Convenience-y in movies, where it's just convenience, they have
stuns. There's one set for stun.
Oh, okay. All those times they were trying to capture him in the Death Star,
She clearly hears the guy say, set for stun, shoots one of them. He said stun! He wasn't gonna hurt you.
I like how her gun was like a giant silenced
weapon.
Yeah, like a giant pistol with a huge silencer on it, and it killed one of them.
So, moving, because we're going to have to jump around a lot with A New Hope. You get down on Tatooine, introduced to Luke, Obi-Wan, all of that. Luke's aunt and uncle who raised him get murdered by the Empire.
Again, another really, really iconic scene is him. And what made it so iconic was they had the whole idea of a rising and setting sun, which is so fucking awesome because it's not only his life is about to set in some ways, and his life is about, because from here on he becomes Luke, as in the Luke who as one of the greatest Jedis ever, who would rival Master Yoda, and I think me and you would both argue is in many ways better than Yoda, and also is setting on his old whiny and
Well, I was gonna go to Tashi Station and pick up power converters.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And then these droids piece of crap, but I love that scene because I know it's super super cliche and everyone says they love that scene, but I think you're allowed to love that scene for what it really is, as in probably one of the better moments in cinema history, as far as foreshadowing the next 3 movies and imagery and all that great jazz and bacon, but
yeah.
And then I also love the scene in that movie where C-3PO is such a prim, proper dude. She's like, I am C-3PO, and this is R2-D2, and he's like, yeah, okay, hi. He's super sarcastic about it. He doesn't even care. And C-3PO is taking this all seriously, well, my new master, he gets out of the hot oil bath, and he's like, and this is my kind of boss.
I see, Sir Luke.
And he's like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck.
I just fixed the robots.
And that's when the video plays, and we get introduced into Leia's plight and someone named Obi-Wan Kenobi, and who's that? And then I don't know. There's some house scenes around the farm, which I want to go on a tangent here. Why on earth would you live in Tatooine trying to harvest moisture when there's places like Naboo with the giant waterfall? Because they harvest moisture, right? I mean, like, that's...
Well, yeah, they kind of have to for subsistence on that planet.
Or they could just have people send it in giant space...
But that's not cost-effective.
How do you figure?
Well, cost of shipment. When you could
over trying to harvest moisture in a fucking desert planet?
Well, yeah, then you don't have to worry about transporting it off
By the way, EU, apparently Tatooine was once a lush green planet world.
That's jumping far ahead. That's jumping really far ahead.
Far ahead? That's jumping far back.
Well, I'm talking about in our discussion.
Well, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you get to the cantina. You're introduced to...
Well, hold on. I think
we can't spend all day talking about this.
Yes, we can. We got shit. He gets, your father was Jedi. He was killed by Vader.
Yeah.
Which is another good... And I think this is a testament to how
Vader
fucking awesome...
was seduced by the dark side.
How fucking good of an actor Alec was, that he had no idea about this spoiler that everyone knows, but apparently not. He had no idea, and yet he delivered that line so well about Vader killed your father, and he had no idea, and yet when you watch it now, after you've seen Empire Strikes Back... It's
almost as if he knew.
Exactly! It looks like he knew, and he's like, because he hesitates, he's like, your father was killed. Because, like, he obviously, like, and even if you think about, like, as someone who's about to tell someone how their father died, you would hesitate. But at the same time, if you knew the truth, you would hesitate too. So I know what you really are, Luke. Yeah, he's such a good actor that he delivers that moment pricelessly. And then there's the meme where he gets handed, like, one of the most dangerous weapons in the galaxy, and he points it in his fucking face. And it's like, oh, it's a lightsaber, and he turns it on. But... And then his parents die, and again, what's fucking great is they go to the Jawas, and he's like, these blasted marks are too precise for sand people. And you're like, wait, are you talking about the same stormtroopers from Return of the Jedi? Are you sure about this?
Or even Empire, for that matter.
Yeah, are you talking about the same stormtroopers? Because...
These blast marks too accurate for sand people.
No!
Speaking of which, first racial stereotype of the Star Wars trilogy, sand people. Because, I mean, they're definitely not the Mujahideen at all. Yeah. Just saying. So
then we get his uncle and aunt die, and I think that's the first tragedy in his life, and... I don't know, I wish they would have expanded on that more, because he kind of... It seems like he laments... okay. But so they get to Mos Eisley, and you get introduced to my second favorite character in the franchise,
Han Solo.
Badass.
Or is that Pig Nose? I don't like you either.
Well, I mean,
I've got
there's room for third here.
I've got the death sentence on 12 systems.
Oh my god. What's great is Luke's just minding his business, and he's like,
my
friend doesn't like you, and he's like, oh, okay, whatever. He's like, I don't like you either, and you're like, alright, you need to take a chill pill, because you're getting a little aggressive here, and Luke did nothing to you. But, then you kind of actually see one of the first acts of violence in the movie, where Obi-Wan pulls out his lightsaber, cuts off his arm, and... You kind of realize how powerful the Jedi are because he does it so quickly. He like and he all of a sudden his arm's off, and then like you're like, oh, okay, these guys are pretty badass.
Yeah, like they're masters of their craft.
Yeah, and like you can even argue Obi-Wan's had a layoff for a while. Like he's been on vacation for about 20 years.
He's had nothing to do in the desert.
Yeah, except make dragon calls. Out of toilet bowls.
We'll get to that later.
But we missed the scene where they obviously cut where the sand person knocks over Luke.
Oh yeah, and it's like it's forward reverse,
and it's forward reverse. It was arms
because some of the film went missing. Yeah,
but
it's still
So then we actually have the conversation between the two, and they hire Han, and they start going to the ship. And I think this is where we can't avoid this. We have to talk about this right now with Han shot first.
The famous or infamous Han shot first, Greedo shot first. They both shoot at the same time.
And
whatever.
Either way you look at it, they look so bad. Like, it's not like he did. I'll give you this. They did the best they could with the money they had, and they had a shit ton of money to work with, and they made it the best they could. But it still looks bad. Like, you can't. Unless they just CGI'd the whole thing, which, honestly, I probably would rather them just do that. Like, honestly, just CGI the whole thing.
Instead of, like, with the Blu-ray, where they both shoot at the same time, you notice how Han, really badly, I might add, it's edited, his head slightly shifts.
Yeah, and they do that with when he steps on Jabba's tail, and, like, they just lift him in the shot, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it looks really, really bad, because...
And he says, I believe his reasoning was because he didn't want Han Solo to be a bad guy. And you're like, well, he's about to die, and he's pretty much killing Greedo to save his life. Like, in retrospect.
Even then, he's the scoundrel. He's the neutral renegade.
I'm just arguing in the sense that, like, he wants to be self-defense. But in essence... It's still self-defense. Like, he's about to die.
He's a pirate. He's not meant to be a good guy.
Well, he's not a pirate. He's a smuggler.
Smuggler, pirate, it's the same damn thing.
No, because a pirate would raid other ships and kill people and take their stuff. He doesn't do that. He smuggles items, you know. And he had to dump his cargo because the Imperials were gonna catch him. And he says this later, even I have to dump my cargo. And
even I get boarded.
Even I get boarded. And so the original, they had him shoot Greedo.
And that was it.
Under the table, which was a cool scene because Greedo, you obviously could tell, had his gun pointed at him, right? So, he's about to die. So he shoots him, and then he pays for it. And then I guess in the DVDs...
In the special edition VHS... Greedo shoots first, then Han returns fire, which Greedo, like, completely misses his head.
It was just point blank. But, and then in the Blu-ray, like you said, they shoot at the same time.
Yeah, they shoot at the same time. Han slightly, like, moves his head to his right, and that's kind of like... It looks really bad. It's noticeable. It's like somebody did it... It's like somebody just cropped Han's head and, like, slightly moved it over in an editing software. It's really bad. Very noticeable. Not a smooth transition at all.
So then we're actually introduced to the Millennium Falcon, which a lot of people say it's their favorite ship. It's actually not my favorite ship.
No,
it is. The cockpit on that thing
makes no sense.
It makes no sense, especially when we get into Empire Strikes Back when they're flying in an asteroid field, and even later in Return of the Jedi when they're flying inside the Death Star. And mind you, the cockpit is not in the middle of the ship, so you have to like be wary of I have to hug the right.
It's like sticking off onto the side like a little tumor.
I guess it's like driving a car, but you're driving like 6 cars put together, and you're all the way on the right.
It's like you just have to look left, and that's what you're driving. You just have to that right there.
Because technically, if you look left, you don't see what's left of you, because you see the rest of the ship pointing out. So it's just there's actually another Carillion transport that I love that has the cockpit in the middle, and you can look all around from your left to your right at a 180 degree angle, and you can see space. And that's a cool ass ship that you had in X-Wing Alliance, which is a fucking awesome game. But
video game.
I love that game. But then you see how annoying Luke is because he wants 15,000 credits. Was it 5,000 something? And he's like, we can buy a ship for that much. And he's like, and then they're in the ship and the red lights flash. And he's like, hey, what's that? And Han Solo's like, shut up! It's the deflector shield failing. And then they warp out of there. And then we go to the Death Star.
And we're introduced to Grand Moff Tarkin.
Or better known as Clint Eastwood.
It's not Clint Eastwood.
In my movie it is.
It's not Clint Eastwood. Can you imagine Grand Moff Tarkin being rebels? Rebel scum.
Fire when ready.
Yeah, you may fire when ready. Fire.
But we get I think
Peter Cushing.
I want to find was he the main antagonist of that movie? Because I feel as though he was, and again, I just feel like Vader plays a pawn in every movie.
It seems like even though all these people try to pass off Vader as like this guy that's this huge head honcho or whatever. It seems like until Empire, because Empire he kind of acts by himself.
For the most part. No, because...
Well, there's one scene, but other than that...
I disagree, and we'll get into that later.
He's a henchman.
He is. And that's why I think everyone... And then like, that's what bothered me about the prequels, which again we'll get into, because he's not that big of a character, in my opinion. But... okay, so they pull her out, and they're like, where's the Rebel base? And she's like, Dantooine, which... I applaud the developers of KOTOR for throwing that in there. Like, you actually could, go there, and they had some. It was something, but
there was a rebel base at Dantooine, but it was abandoned.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I like the fact that in KOTOR you actually go there and you're like, hey, look, it's Dantooine. But so Alderaan, which by the way hasn't had weapons on their planet for like 40 years.
They're like a pacifist planet.
Yeah, they're
pretty much.
super. They don't have weapons.
They're like Switzerland without any guns.
And they blow up Alderaan with the giant super laser
from the Death Star. It's funny how you look through Star Wars and just how generic some of the terms are for things like Death Star,
Star Destroyer,
the Force,
lightsaber.
Well, I'll give lightsaber some credit. It could be worse. Laser sword.
This is the first time they'll see Yoda with this little laser sword thingy.
Yeah, laser sword thingy.
Damn, George Lucas. George Lucas, right, Mom?
Yeah, but the Force...
Midichlorians, you mean?
The light side, the dark side.
Yeah, look, we obviously know he borrowed from a shit ton of tropes. Like, like I said, Flash Gordon 2.0. Like, it was very... This wasn't revolutionary in the way, I think, the story itself, like the broad tropes of the story, weren't revolutionary. I think it was the way the story was told and the technology...
used to tell it.
And the imagery to tell it, because... I don't know. And honestly, I don't think George Lucas was ever a good director, and I think there's problems with this movie, like you said, pacing.
Yeah, I think the pacing of A New Hope is really, really bad. I think Tatooine, in my opinion, goes on for way too long, and the worst part about Tatooine was there was a lot of stuff that was deleted out of Tatooine. There's at least a half an hour's worth of stuff that was deleted, and I'm just sitting here thinking... Yeah, there could have been an extra 30 minutes of this, and I'm sorry, but if this would have came out and I was alive, I probably would have walked out of this because of how long Tatooine would have been if they kept that original footage in.
Yeah, like I said, it suffers from certain things, and he's never been a good character director. And I think the great thing he had with him was the fact that he had, like, Alec Guinness. Who just was like, I'm a
Sir Alec Guinness.
Like, I don't care. And I think even Han Solo, or Harrison Ford, and his awesomeness. But then we get, they blow up Alderaan, and then you see Luke training in the Force with a little laser ball gun.
Laser ball gun.
With his lightsaber.
Laser ball gun. I like that.
And then we go to, oh god.
Well, they come out of the hyperspace,
and there's rocks, and
there's
like,
no Alderaan.
We should be at Alderaan, and then there's a TIE fighter
taken into the Death Star.
Which was a really cool scene because you're like,
this thing is huge.
Yeah,
that's not a moon; it's a space.
And I like how it tied together, like the two, because she gets taken away, and all of a sudden they come and join, and that kind of ties the two together, Leia and the other two. Because I mean, I guess you could say the other 5 or 6, but whatever. I count Luke and Han as like I think the three are the 3 main characters in the 3 movies.
Luke, Han, and Leia.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
And we get there, and they do the cool. I will say, I don't know why they felt. It lands, and they go inside, and there's no one there, and it just seems like you know something was wrong, and you wouldn't just leave 2 guards. You know what I mean? Because it's like, even if you say, like, oh, it could have been unmanned, like, you obviously, unless they don't know, they saw this thing leave Tatooine. Unless they don't know that this is the same ship that left Tatooine, or they don't, or, like, the cruisers at Tatooine haven't called it in yet or something, then, okay, I understand that. But this ship arrived here and there's no one there, and you're not suspicious about that at all. You just bring in, like, they brought in 2 soldiers with a monitoring thing.
Well, don't they also make a remark about some escape pods being jettisoned? Not all of them, but some of them.
Okay.
I think they do make something like that, and then they're just like looking at it, kind of going, "Well, it could very well be abandoned, but scan it.
Okay.
Keep looking, see if
some Star Wars fan I am.
Yeah, I mean,
the last time I saw it was the Family Guy edition, so...
Oh, I pity you.
I'm kidding.
I'm good. Good.
And then they do the cool, like, hey, and then he's like, T-43, if you haven't checked in, and he's like, oh, I have a communication error, and then...
They find out the location of Princess Leia.
Then Kenobi decides to go on his own, and I think he knows at this point. He knows Darth Vader's here. Darth Vader knows he's there.
Yeah, a presence I have not felt since.
I don't think Obi-Wan ever said anything, but I think Obi-Wan just knew and they didn't have him say anything.
Yeah.
You can assume he knew.
And, he gets to show off some of his little tricks or whatever while he's sneaking around on the Death Star, trying to disable the tractor beam so they can leave. Like
I wish they had made a game where you played it as him. Like
old man Obi-Wan.
Like Metal Gear Solid 4, like, you hit your back and, like, use the Force.
You got those 2 stormtroopers or whatever, and he just, like, taps the air and they go, "What was that?" That's nothing. That right there is just like, oh, this is awesome. He didn't even really do anything, but this is awesome. So, turns down the subwoofer, and that magically makes the tractor beam get shut off.
He found it, and, he went there and turned it off. And I like Han Solo's character so much, because he's like, alright, we're gonna sit here and get out of here. And then Luke's like, no, we have to rescue the princess, and Han's like, no, I'm gonna sit here where it's safe, and where I can see my ship. And he's like, money, and then the greedy bastard's like, money? Okay. And so they go, and they devise a pretty good plan, where they're like, again though, I feel as though anyone else in the ship was like, how the hell did the Wookiee get here? Where did you come from?
Yeah, we're all fine here, we're all fine. How are you? that great delivery, because it's almost as if he broke character to do that voice, because it's a completely different voice from his character almost.
Yeah, because they go to the detention center and they're like,
so slight reactor leak. We're fine.
They're in a fight.
We're fine.
And I guess security heard it, or
look out, he's loose. I can't hold him. And then they're saying this while shooting people. Oh, that was my phone going off. Anyway,
but so then he has that great line of dialogue, and she's like, oh, nothing's wrong here, and he just shoots the microphone. And says, Luke, we're going to have company soon, and...
Yeah.
Then another iconic line, Luke opens the door, and she's like, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?
Oh, the uniform.
Yes.
Yes.
And, one thing that's cool about that is, technically that's not true, because while they are all clones, a lot of them aren't now. I think, right? Aren't some of the stormtroopers not clones anymore, or is it just... other personnel that's not clones, because I know the clone troopers were all clons.
They were all killed off. The clones. They all eventually died out.
So technically,
and they were replaced by actual, like they had Imperial academies and recruited people.
Yeah, I still think a clone of a Mandalorian warrior
probably would have been a lot more effective than just Joe Schmo from Desert Planet number 46. That must be it, though.
That must be it. Maybe this is the missing link we've had. Maybe Empire Strikes Back is the last time they had. Maybe the rest of the clones was on the Death Star, and they all died, and then everyone else was just Joe Schmo. That's why they can't hit it for shit.
Well, so they escaped the stormtroopers after rescuing Leia, going down into the garbage chute. Have a nice little dramatic scene, and
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, that dramatic scene with the walls closing in. Proceed, get out of that.
Oh, I think I do like that scene where they're cheering because CP3O and R2D2 saved them, and it doesn't sound very well on their little transmitter, and CP3O's like, "Oh, we've killed them!" and
it's horrifying.
Yeah, and it really
they were the dying on.
It was pretty great, but. Then they get out and
That's when they decide. Well,
they start fighting and then.
Well, no, they
Yeah, they run into some bad guys and they're shooting.
Yeah, and then Han starts charging after him.
That's a great scene.
Tells Luke and Leia to go on. We'll meet back at the ship. Han's charging after the stormtroopers, going all Rambo before Rambo was Rambo, and
he turns
around and goes, ah! He shoots one and then runs backwards.
Yeah, I actually do like the special effects scene on that, where he turns the corner and it's like
a whole there's
like a battalion
hangar bay.
Like, oh, and he's like, oh, because like the original, I think it was like 12,
it was just a hallway full of them.
It was like 12 or 15 stormtroopers,
yeah.
And then George Lucas was like, this obviously isn't enough. Add 100 more.
Well, yeah, it's like you look at it, it's like this is an entire hangar bay full of these guys. What have I done?
And then you have the great scene with the bridge where they
swing across.
Which, wasn't that thing like 9 meters deep? I believe.
Remember.
And I think it was 9 meters deep, and they had tested the cable like 1 or 2 times, and they were like, alright, go! And fortunately, they made the jump. And then you get to the part where they meet up, they find the droids, and they're sneaking in their ship.
And then we get our duel.
Which technically the duel started before this, but we get the duel, how George Lucas at the time envisions lightsaber duels, which oddly enough, you know, it was kind of good that he wanted them this way, which they were slow, and like when you hit, you felt that hit.
Like, you know, we were discussing earlier off mic about the Lord of the Rings and how wizards are portrayed as compared to Jedis in Star Wars, and how in the Lord of the Rings, wizards have so much self-discipline and don't really use their magic that often. I think that with A New Hope and this duel, with the fact that they're moving slow like that, I think it's because they're so calculating and have to be so precise with their movements, and that's why they're not moving fast. You know, even channeling the Force into their actual combat.
I don't.
But then this later gets completely thrown out the window.
The problem with that is like it's a guy with a mask who can barely see, and it's a guy who's like 70 years old. So I understand like the way he envisioned it at the time, he was like, I want my lightsaber duels to be really slow, and like the attacks are gonna have a lot of power in them. Yeah. So when you hit, you also feel the vibration, so you can't just be.
I believe Mark Hamill once described it as, it's like as if you're holding Excalibur. This is a mighty blade, and it's something that's going to be slow for you to use. Yes.
And that was obviously downplayed in the rest of the movies, which I actually like. I like the scenes. I like the duel in Empires more than the most of all 3 of them, but this one does have a lot of emotional undertones where you're like, oh, these 2 knew each other, and this was a master once, and then I am the master now.
Yeah,
only a master of evil, Darth.
Your power's so weak, old man. Well, you're in an iron lung. So.
Yeah, so and they fight, and what's great is it's kind of a draw. I don't know. I mean, I would be curious I don't know who would win, to be honest. I mean, I guess you could argue Darth Vader would probably win.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got cybernetics on his side.
And if he is Anakin, so I don't know. I do know that the suit made him weaker, but not much weaker, and obviously they were kind of equal at the end of Episode 3. But Anakin wasn't in his prime just yet, and Obi-Wan was, and now Obi-Wan's super old, but he's... I don't know, I guess I would say Darth Vader would win if they kept going. Eventually, I think Darth Vader would overpower him. But you have the great scene where he looks over and he sees Luke, and for some reason he's like, well, I guess I should let myself die now.
Well, I guess this well, I'm fucked.
And I remember Alec Guinness got so mad at that because he was like, wait, I'm not going to be in the other movies? Excuse me? And I believe they had to write him in. Like, I don't think they planned on him being a ghost.
Nope.
He was not supposed to be a ghost, and he got so mad. Thank God he did. That George Lucas was like, okay. Which, it's a good thing, because I guess...
Without his guidance in Empire...
How the hell would he have found Yoda and Dagobah? I guess...
Yeah, you will learn.
Maybe he could have found like a book or something, and he'd be like, "Oh, I guess I'll."
He found a holocron, as they call it.
There we go. He'd find a holocron, and then he would, I guess, go. I honestly, I kind of wish he had let him live, but I don't see that help. I just think that's my own personal, like, I don't like it when good guys die, so I guess I think in the end it was the right choice to do, have him die in front of Luke, and
I
find it odd that Luke is much more upset that Obi-Wan dies than his aunt and uncle, which I said this earlier about, like, his aunt and uncle die.
That guy that you knew for, like, 6 hours?
Yeah. This guy you've known for maybe a day? I don't know how long it's been. But,
yeah.
I mean, he saved your life, true, and he taught you the Force, and he taught you your lineage and everything. But this is your aunt and uncle, and you could kind of tell that his aunt...
You've known them for all your life.
You could kind of tell his aunt had a soft spot for him. Because she's like, you shouldn't be so hard on him. Kind of like every mother is, like, really... Like, she's a mother figure. And I have a feeling he liked his mother, and his uncle was kind of a douche, and he was like, whatever. But he's so upset that Obi-Wan dies.
No!
Yeah, he even goes to... He goes to lengths to blow their cover and scream no and start shooting at the stormtroopers, which I think this is where they start really missing.
Yeah, obvious. One gets shot and falls down that little elevator shaft there in the middle of the floor, just like, ah!
But then they escape, and they escape, and they have this weird... They have the weird starfight... The bomber, because like you always when you watch special edition stuff, you always see the bomber footage from World War II, and that's what one of the things George Lucas drew inspiration from. So they have these turrets on the Millennium Falcon that they sit in and like move around and try to shoot down the fighters, and then 2 movies later,
yep,
dogfights. So, but we'll get into that later. But I to this day I wish he had scrapped that scene and just had
them getting away.
Yeah, It just, one of the things I loved about Return of the Jedi was that space scene, and I loved how the Millennium Falcon was in that space scene as this, like, cool gunship kind of role. And in this, it's, like, slow and lumbersome, and they have the little guns, and they're trying to shoot down the fighters, and you're just... Now, I'm sure maybe some EU explains it to where if the Millennium Falcon has fighter support with it, maybe it can be more of a gunship role, but in this role, it was kind of like...
It's like a
bear, kind of like a bear surrounded by a bunch of dogs. And it kind of is slower and has to calculate, so...
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I think we're just giving excuses, to be honest, though, and I kind of wish...
And make their way to Yavin 4.
Because technically, what's stupid about it is they should never even have had the fighters chase them because they tagged the ship anyways and were tracking it. And the Plinkett brought this up in one of his reviews. He was like, Leia is the stupidest person ever. Like, she has to know they're probably tracking them. All she has to do is drop off the information somewhere, not Yavin, and continue going, and have that person bring the information to Yavin, and like, oh, crisis avoided, instead of just leading the Empire to Yavin 4, which then we get there, and we meet Briggs, and
Biggs and Wedge. Well, not Wedge, but you
I don't
Biggs.
think you meet Wedge
until
the actual battle over Yavin 4, but... You get there. On the way, by the way.
Which Biggs is introduced in deleted scenes for A New Hope, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, here's this character that Luke knew that we have no idea about.
Yeah. I don't have that big of a problem with it, but you get there and they formulate their plan to destroy the Death Star, and then you get the final battle, and again, I like the special edition more, to be honest. I do. Where you actually see much more starfighters. Instead of, like, the original, there was, like, 12. And you're like, oh, boy. 12 starfighters.
I don't really think that they did that with A New Hope. I think it was just they did some shots.
They added more shots. They
added more CG shots, which was more dogfighting shots. Uh-huh. It wasn't necessarily more fighters.
Yeah, right before they get... Right when they're flying towards it, there's more ships in the formation. There's more X-Wings and Y-Wings, which, by the way... What were the Y-Wings?
Okay.
What were the Y-Wings doing?
Yeah, why would you send a bomber for a...
Don't understand that at all. Like... that ship bothers me. And even in Return of the Jedi, it's still there. And you're like, I would request a different ship. I would be like, I am not flying that. I will stay. Nope, I am not flying that thing.
Well, I mean, even speaking, because you said that they added more ships. Well, if you watch the original, when they're taking off from Yavin 4, it's just a series of red lights just like speeding off into the sky. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, look, here's the ship, and it's turning, and it's going that way, and it's speeding off. Woo! I would have really just preferred the red lights, because it's a lot shorter.
True, I'm a little different than you. I like things that help enhance the plot and make you understand, like, oh, they're lifting off to go attack them. Like, instead of just things like in Mos Eisley, it's like, oh, giant beast that looks cartoony. Like, that's not supposed to be there. But if you're gonna, like, make things look better and add things... I hate to admit, because this kind of sounds like I'm siding with him, because I don't like the fact that he made the Ewoks blink, but I do like the fact that he tried to... You know, like you said, I do like the fact that he added more stormtroopers in the hangar because it makes it more daunting. Like, instead of just 12, now there's 100, so you're like, oh, shit, that is a fuck ton of... Like, they kind of add to the sense, like... Because, like, the whole time they're fighting, they're only fighting at a time, like, 5 or 6 stormtroopers at a time. This makes it seem like, holy shit, there's a shit ton of stormtroopers here. Like, they have to get out. So I don't mind that he added a few more ships. I don't like the fact that he added to the dogfight, because it kind of throws off the score, because it adds video that the score was not, scored to.
Yeah.
And then we get the battle, which is funny because there's certain times when they attack the exterior of the Death Star, it looks better than the Death Star in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it doesn't look as plastic.
Now, I'm not talking about the scenes where you see, like, the Millennium Falcon and, Wedge and Rogue Squadron flying on, like, I'm talking about the scene where the Executor runs into the Death Star and it's like, oh, that looks really bad.
Yeah, the Death Star surface in Return of the Jedi, when the Executor rams into the second Death Star,
bad.
That was like, oh, you literally just put down white plastic and said go.
Yeah, but that, and I think it looks worse with the Blu-ray, but that's such a great scene. It's so good. And then you have
get the trench run where
I personally, I'm so mad that they killed off
Biggs.
No. You know what I'm talking about. Porkins. Because he was like an ace like 3 times over. He was a good fighter.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He was a good fighter, and I guess he miscalculated it, and he...
It came from behind!
Oh, that was Red Leader.
Was it?
Yeah, because he leaves the trench, and then...
I've had a little trouble here.
Yeah, that's Porkins.
Yeah. While eating a Big Mac, I'm having a little trouble
I
here.
heard to say that the one thing I love about Family Guy is, goddamn, they did that so perfect.
He's like outside.
His fat rolls are going over the starship. He gets a bucket of KFC, I believe, and he's just like skirting the Death Star. Oh boy! And I will say, for the limited technology and how they shot that, which is one thing I love about like the prequels. You see like behind the scenes footage, and they're just walking down blue hallways. And then you see behind the footage of this, and they're standing beside a pretty big trench-looking thing.
Yeah,
and
they built a miniature, and then they
have smaller fighters. Like they fucking stop-go, and oh god. Well, not technically stop-go, but Jesus Christ.
There's some stop-motion and some composite going on in there.
God.
Earlier when you've got the Millennium Falcon shooting the TIE fighters when they're escaping from the Death Star, some of that was some miniatures that were being filmed with a camera with blue screen, and then they were later composited in with if you're looking through the cockpit of the ship or whatever, then you'll see it fly by.
This is so good. And that trench run is very, very suspenseful. And I think what's funny is like you play like Rogue Squadron in these games, and you play the trench run, and you're just like, ugh.
We have to add obstacles.
Well, not even that. It's just never as... You can't obviously make that in a game to be as suspenseful because it's just so, like, they're flying, and then the towers stop, and you're like, oh, shit. And, like, pull shields to the reflector.
Yeah, you're bouncing up and down.
And, like, all shields to,
which I'm just
to rear, and it doesn't even matter because the TIE fighters hit it and
blow them up. Or in space, they wouldn't
hit air pockets.
Hitting air pockets?
Yes.
In a vacuum.
It's a Star Wars movie. It's fantasy. It's not science fiction.
Fantasy. Whatever.
And then you have Red Leader misses, and then Luke, Wedge, and Biggs
go down.
And also Wedge is like my 4th favorite Star Wars character. I think he is vastly underrated considering the fact he's the only pilot to have ever survived both Death Star runs. Now I know Luke Skywalker lived through he wasn't actually in the run to destroy it though, which is why Wedge is fucking awesome. And then he makes fucking Rogue Squadron, which is even fucking awesomer. Or whatever. Wedge is fucking badass. I think he's probably my 3rd. Like, honestly, behind Luke and Han, I don't think you can be more badass than Wedge.
Who happens to be, I think, a blood relative to Ewan McGregor.
He's a fucking badass.
Yeah.
And he's from Corellia. No. Wait, no, he's from Alderaan. That's right, he's from Alderaan. Which...
Payback, bitch!
Wait a minute. Don't quote me on that again. I think he's from Alderaan, though.
So it's basically like payback for him.
Yeah.
I can't stay with you.
Oh, I might listen to that. Is he from... I think he's from Alderaan. But we continue, and
Luke makes the shot after Obi-Wan from death reaches out to him with the Force.
Which is where you get the first, like, Obi-Wan is maybe not... He's dead, but he's still going to be here, and, like, he takes off the targeting computer. Luke, you switched off your targeting computer. And
I'm alright.
And it always bothered me that the Millennium Falcon just didn't blow up Darth Vader's TIE fighter.
Oh, yeah, because then it just kind of, like, gets hit by another fighter, flies out of the trench, and
no, because he shoots, like, he shoots one of his wingmen, and then the other wingman's like a retard and runs into Darth Vader right before he shoots Luke. And it's just like, Han, you could have saved us a lot of trouble and just blown up. Could you imagine how different things would have been then? But then he shoots it and he blows up the Death Star, and then the red ring of death happens.
The red ring.
Yeah, death, and then yay!
They get back. Ceremony. End of movie.
Orgy.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but god damn, is R2D2 and C3PO shiny.
They look good in that ending.
So, because we've talked for about an hour on A New Hope, I think for the next two movies we're going to have to be a lot more concise.
We can probably do that for Return, but I don't know about Empire.
Okay, Empire will be a little bit easier for you. We're just going to break it down into 3 sections.
Well, Hoth, Dagobah, and Cloud City.
Pretty much.
Hoth is probably one of my favorite settings in all the Star Wars movies.
Really?
Or at least favorite battle.
Yes, I will have to agree with you there. I believe the Hoth battle, because I think Arctic warfare is a really, really cool concept. And then you add giant camel robots. And
like, their whole thing is armor, except for like the middle shell, which holds like a platoon of soldiers. And then the cockpit, which has fucking giant lasers on it.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, it's not so lumbering that it can't shoot down fucking airspeeders. Like, they blow the shit out of those airspeeders. Which, again...
Why don't you just fly behind them?
Or fly side to side.
Just
straight from side to side. What do you...
Which Luke did once in a really cool shot, I might add.
Yeah, when he flies between the legs.
Yeah, where he's like flying between the legs, flies up and does that.
And it's a good thing they equipped those things with tow cables.
Well, I find it fascinating that, speeders, they're not meant to be fighters. These are jury-rigged fighters. They're just meant to be speeders.
Not in Battlefront 2, where they have a heavy cannon and a blaster cannon. But before we get to the battle, we actually should go to beginning. They're at Echo Base, which I always loved Echo Base. Echo Base is such a badass. Like, it's like in the fucking mountain, and it has a shield generator over it. And the Emperors, they're just throwing out probe droids trying to find where the rebels are. And which I don't understand why they had. I will say this: why do they have a ground base when they have a fleet? Because like they meet up with the fleet. With those transports, like, why not just have a mobile fleet?
Well, I think they have several bases throughout the galaxy, and I believe the entire purpose of Empire is so that way Vader can track down Luke, because Luke will be with a certain group of rebels. He knows that.
Okay, well, I guess so.
And for the fact that he wants to capture.
Luke gets attacked by the Wampa, and then he gets dragged to the Wampa Slayer. And
gets the vision from Obi-Wan.
Yeah, this is very good. He actually, this is one of the first times you actually see Luke use the Force, other than maybe when he made the shot in Death Star. This, like, he actually uses it where you can see it. He pulls the lightsaber out and then cuts the Wampa's arm off. And he goes outside like an idiot. I would have just killed the Wampa and stayed inside where it's warm. He goes outside.
I would have skinned that Wampa and wore its fur.
And eaten it, too. But he goes outside, he almost freezes to death. He sees Obi-Wan Kenobi, then Han Solo saves him. And then...
Battle of Hoth!
I believe Rogue Squadron finds him the next day. And then we have Battle of Hoth, which is such an awesome battle.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Also, right before that battle, Han Solo is like, I'm going to leave. And Leia's like, that's all mad. And I really think that's one of the reasons why I love that movie so much, is the chemistry between the two of those characters. And apparently, they weren't really happy with each other. Carrie Fisher and
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, they weren't happy with each other when they were shooting that film at certain times. And, like, I think...
That's good. That worked. Yeah. That worked to their benefit.
And one of the cool things is they shot most of the outside shots in Switzerland or Sweden.
Yeah.
Or Finland. Sweden. During a blizzard. And Carrie Fisher, even though she was not in any of those shots, she actually went with them. She went with the production crew, and she stayed in the hotel, which was really cool because she did not have to go, because the actual Echo Base was like a studio, which is another fucking cool thing. They actually built Echo Base inside of a studio. But all those outside shots, or at least the ones like where it's snowing and like, you know, Luke is getting rescued by Han, and the Wampa, they had such a horrible... like, it's funny, those first two movies were shot under such horrible conditions, because Tatooine was hot. I don't know how the guy in R2-D2 suit didn't die when they left him. I honestly don't... You know that story, right? Where they left him. They went on lunch break, and they left the actor who plays R2-D2 in R2-D2, and they left him, and they came back, and he wasn't dead. I don't know how he didn't die, and I don't know how he didn't quit right then and sue the shit out of them, but he was okay, and again, in this movie, they were in the fucking freezing cold, and some of the film, like, they actually had to make sure they did it right, because the film would freeze over once they took it off of the camera, and so they shot under horrible conditions, and Carrie Fisher actually went with them, which I thought was always cool. She obviously stayed inside, because I know one of the scenes they actually shot inside of the hotel, looking outside. I'm not kidding. They actually had to, like, dig out, and they were like inside. I'm pretty sure they were inside the hotel shooting outside at, like, I think Luke on the ground, because the conditions were that bad. And then the blizzard died down, and they filmed the Hoth battle scenes with, I think, the Swedish Red Guard or
something like that. Yeah.
But that battle scene's awesome. Luke is awesome. Wedge is a fucking bamf.
Random fat guy.
Yeah, he gets shot down.
Yeah, nosebleed guy. I'm right with you.
It's a shame. It's a shame that Luke couldn't get one down with his harpoon, but then he does so through another badass way where he
takes the harpoon
gun and like slides up, cuts it open, throws in grenade, drops down, and then
whole thing blows up. Yeah.
I will say they Wedge knocks one down with the tow cables, and then they fly over it and shoot at it, and it blows up.
Yep.
Because they hit it in the neck, and you're like, wait a minute.
Why don't we just shoot for the neck?
Why can't you guys do this when they're walking? I don't understand. But then the Empire obviously kicks their ass, because even the satellite turrets that like power up and shoot big old yellow bolts, just again kind of like reminiscent to A New Hope, where the Corellian cruiser shoots at the Star Destroyer and it just kind of sparks off. This giant turret shoots at the AT-AT and it just sparks off, and you're just like, you know, maybe we should just not make defensive maybe we should just make landmines or something, because these AT-ATs are mean business. And it's a shame that they actually had to cut a few scenes out, because the way they shot that was so awesome, and how they actually didn't have enough time to add a few more scenes like they wanted. But that scene is by far my favorite Star Wars.
Great stop motion animation, definitely there, because doing stuff like that with the type of environment that they wanted. You're working with an all white environment, which early computer effects and doing things like that with CGI, white is not your friend.
Mm-mm.
And it still kind of isn't to this day. White really isn't your friend. The darker the color, generally, the easier it is to mask mistakes or mask the fact that something could be computer generated. So working with a completely white set for the most part is a damn good accomplishment, and the final product is great.
Building a Wampa that they had to like have someone walk in, and there's a reason why you don't really see it at all. It's because it was bad looking, and they made it look so well. But what are you talking about? Like when he knocks over Luke.
Oh yeah.
When they're outside in the snow.
Just the arm.
Yeah, because they had the whole suit, but it didn't look good.
No.
At all. And then one of the great things, they leave, and I always thought it was, this is probably one of my, again, like, plot hole. Luke leaves, he's okay. The Millennium Falcon leaves, and there's like 3 Star Destroyers right on his ass. And you're just like, well, and that...
Well, it's because he's slower.
Because he's a gunship, I guess. But that leads me to another one of my favorite scenes, which is the asteroid scene, which has the favorite score in it, which is the asteroid score. And
it really is a cool scene.
It's such a goddamn... There's a potato in that scene as an asteroid. They actually put a baked potato in there to see if you could notice.
It's a baked potato.
Really, it's one of the asteroids that flies by the cockpit, which Another great thing is they're staring at a blue screen.
Yep.
And they're, because they're getting. I love it because they're getting attacked by the lasers, and then they get hit, and the toolbox falls on his head, and he's like, "Ow!" And he pops up, and he's like, "That wasn't a laser blast, something hit us." And then Han, get up here, and he runs up, and then they go into the asteroid field, and C-3PO, which for some reason Irving Kershner, that's it, right?
Yeah, Irving Kershner. Yeah,
loved C-3PO because originally his Kashkin and Lucas didn't have him as that big of a role, just like in A New Hope. In this movie, his role was Irving loved him so much he was like, we need to give this man more lines. So that's what like if you hate C-3PO, you have nothing to blame but rest in his peace. Irving Kershner.
Exactly. I'm sitting here just going, wait, you mean you gave my least favorite character more
and you directed the best Star Wars movie? Huh? By the way, Empire Strikes Back is best Star Wars. But the asteroid.
I'm sure many people will agree with you. Also, many people will disagree with you.
And I will destroy them all.
And I actually think more people will agree with you than disagree with you.
And the people who disagree with me will soon agree with me once I destroy the Return of the Jedi. Or Revenge of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Jedi.
Before he realized he could save money off of one letter views. But we get that great scene, and he flies to the asteroids, and what's awesome is this big lumbering ship is better at dodging asteroids than these small, nimble TIE fighters. And you're like, huh?
So Luke gets to Dagobah.
Well, they land. They land in the
Luke gets to Dagobah.
cavern.
Discovers a.
Well, he discovers that it is the rainforest, and apparently his controls stop working once he enters the atmosphere.
Jeez. I'm going to start a landing cycle.
I guess it's a good thing he landed in the water and not on the ground.
I guess.
Or like Yoda's hut.
Yeah,
Yoda's just chilling.
Yeah, he lands and discovers a Jim Henson Muppet by the name of Yoda.
Frank Oz.
Who is extremely pissed off if you take away a flashlight that he clearly stole from you.
Mine.
Feel like what?
Which Revenge... Oh, God damn it. Empire Strikes Back Yoda is best Yoda again. Take that puppet from Phantom Menace and burn that shit. Seriously, that is abomination.
I don't know what the hell happened.
It looked worse than the one... I guess it's like they lost the original and they were
No, their whole reasoning behind it, we have to make a slightly younger Yoda, so you make him
800 years old. You don't have to make him look any younger. Dye his hair, give him some Just for Men.
Found someone I'd say you have.
At first I always thought those scenes were boring, and then I found to start loving them because there's so much there's so many good parts in there, where he's like, oh, not this crude matter, and then...
Not this crude matters.
We'll get in fucking midichlorians, God, but...
That'll be the prequels,
and then,
sure.
He goes... There's that one part of dark... there's a dark forest area...
Yeah,
where the dark side is.
The cave.
And he's he grabs his weapon, and he's like, don't take those... I'm not going to speak in Yoda accent, by the way. He's like, don't take those... Bring only what you need. You won't need your weapons. And he brings them anyways, which kind of spawns the Darth Vader vision he sees. And then he kills Darth Vader, and then he sees it's him, which is a great way of saying, oh, if I let this tempt me, and if I bring my weapons, if I do this, bringing the weapons was a metaphor for, the shortcut of the dark side. Mm-hmm. And if I do that, I can become what I hate the most, which is Darth Vader. Because at this time, he still thinks, oh, wait, at this time, he still killed his father. But
exactly.
That's a great little... And, they never really tell you how long that is. And I'm pretty sure there's probably EU that definitely says so, and I don't know. I would say it's probably between 2 weeks to 4 months, I would say maybe.
That's a pretty long time to be stuck in an asteroid field.
Well, we don't know how... But no, because they get out of the asteroid field, and then they start heading towards Cloud City, which obviously is going to take a while, because it's in-system, but they don't have hyperdrive.
Yeah.
So... Between them being in the asteroid field, getting out, hiding...
Boba Fett following them?
Maybe 2 weeks. I want to say 2 weeks to maybe a month and a half then, is how long he's on Dagobah with Yoda.
Yeah.
I would assume. But then again, the X-Wing looks fine, so it could be as short as a couple days, but... As far as... I would like to think that he was training for at least a month, because considering that Jedi before this grew up...
Like you were born, and then you're 3 years old, and you go off to train until you're about like 18.
Till about. Wow, really? They come that young?
Yeah, they try to get them as young as possible.
And you train, and Luke does it in about 2 weeks.
Exactly. So, it's kind of like,
But you could argue that he's being trained by the Mount Rushmore of Jedi with Yoda. He's up there in the top 5, I would say. Him and maybe Mace.
Yeah, Mace would probably be a pretty good teacher.
Even though, well, yeah, and so Yoda's up there, and he's training him. So I guess that's, like, constantly being trained. And it is kind of like molestation, like you said. Like, he's on his back, like...
Yeah, feel the force flow through you.
And you have the cool shots of him, like, doing handstands while lifting stuff. And you
kind of just on his boot.
Yeah. And then you get the scene where he tries to lift the X-Wing out. And he does. He gets there, and then his friends, he
starts to have visions.
Yeah, and then Yoda's like, alright, bitch. Picks it up and lands it, and he's like, I can't believe it. That is why you fail.
Yeah, that is why you fail. So this little tiny... frog thing with gray hair.
Which we don't even know what the race is.
Yeah.
The lore never really...
Not really. Apparently he had like some kind of... In the EU, he had some kind of brother or whatever who made a...
Yaddle. He was Yaddle.
Or whatever in the Phantom Menace. And I'm just like, okay.
Well, you also had one in KOTOR.
KOTOR Schmotor.
KOTOR is serious lore for me, okay? I don't want to hear it, alright? KOTOR is best
Cloud City. Han Solo meets up with his...
we can't skip inside the asteroid because that's where...
The worm.
Well, no, that's where you finally see Leia and Han get intimate and kiss, and then fucking cockblock of the century. And I think this is also an important... I think this scene really establishes Star Wars as fantasy and not sci-fi when they walk outside of the ship with gas mask on, like the breather mask. And you obviously could not do that in real life or any kind of sci-fi. Like, that would not happen in Star Trek. It would never happen in Star Trek. This is not sci-fi. Like, when you think of science fiction, you should not think of Star Wars. When you think of, like, fantasy and science fantasy, then you can think of Star Wars. This is a prime example because that is not how space works. You don't walk outside. So, they walk outside, and then it's a giant worm, and they get out. And then... Another great scene they have again. They're fighting. I think I wanted to mention this too. Is you said that Darth Vader is kind of his own person in this movie, and I disagree because you get the scene where he's like, the Emperor wants to speak with you, and he's like, get us out of the asteroid field now.
Well, that's the only scene that I was talking about.
Okay.
Other than that, he's pretty much acting
because he's like he's like, get us out of here now so we can talk to him. He's not like, okay, he can wait. He's not easily. He's like, get us out of here. And I agree with you, but that scene to me really kind of points like he is a lapdog. He has no backbone to his own.
He's the Black Knight, and then the Emperor is the evil wizard or the devil or whatever you want to call him.
And I love that scene or a scene before that where you have the 3 holograms of the captains, and you see an asteroid hit one of them,
and then the other one just kind of goes,
you see him like fade away, and you're like, oh, he just died. Well, and then they back out and the original, they had like a monkey face for the Emperor.
Yeah, it was some kind of monkey makeup or whatever. Wasn't even played by a man.
And the voice wasn't even
No, it was not
Ian
McDiarmid.
German?
Yeah.
Ian Malcolm. But
yeah, Malcolm McDowell.
But
for
then
Emperor.
I believe is it the DVD or the Blu-ray where they replace his face?
DVD release they replace his face,
yeah. Which just looks dumb and whatever. But
it goes from the son of Skywalker must never learn to be a Jedi to there is a great disturbance with my...
What happened to your voice?
There's a great disturbance with my adrenaline.
So, then Cloud City happens, which is probably one of the more beautiful locations in the original saga.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could, if you wanted to count all 3 of them, all 6, I guess Naboo would be. Mm-hmm. But even then, I think Cloud City's in some ways
meets
more
up with
modern.
his old pal Lando. You know, they kind of
good opening scene where he's like,
hello.
He's like, I'm
Billy D. Williams.
Drink some Coke 45.
Yeah, pretty much.
Out bottle, but,
Coke 45. So they toy around in there for a little while, and then we're going to go to dinner. We're gonna go to dinner, and
well, we had to mention that damn C-3PO gets distracted by another protocol droid and just leaves the group, walks in, gets trapped, and goes, oh my, and then you hear him get shot, and then they just keep walking, and then the next scene, she's like, we haven't seen 3PO for like a day, and you're like, or is it 3 days?
I don't know.
Because that's my thing, like, it was a long time between when he got to Dagobah and left, I think, but
they go to dinner.
Darth Vader's there, and it's fucking badass. Han Solo pulls out his blaster and shoots him like 4 times, and
he just blocks every shot with his hands.
And he's still a badass though. He's so like, oh my god, shoot, and then Boba Fett pops up behind him, and it's like, oh,
yep,
we've been tracked.
Yeah,
poor Lando. I do kind of feel for Lando because it's like he really had.
I am altering the deal. Pray I do not alter it any further.
I saw a really cool picture, and you guys should go find it. And it's a picture of Lando and Boba Fett looking at each other, and it's like that moment when you don't know which one's the coolest in the room, and they're just looking at each other, and it's like, yeah, they're 2 pretty badass characters, but. Then you have Luke leaving Yoda, and Yoda being like, if you leave now, you'll never become a Jedi, and it's like, yo, I think that was the first time Yoda had problems seeing the future that we saw, as in chronologically, like, but he comes to Cloud City, and then this is probably the best, because I think this started it for Luke, for George, I mean, and it ended with The Phantom Menace, where this ending had like a 2-story arc between Leia and Lando and Chewbacca trying to get Han Solo and then trying to escape, and Luke trying to find Leia, turning into Luke fighting Vader and then trying to escape Vader. So, like, that was the ending arc. And then in the next movie you have, the space battle, the ground battle, and the battle inside the throne room. And then, in Phantom Menace you have the ground battle outside of in the plains, you have the battle in the palace, and then you have the lightsaber duel, and then you have the space battle, and you can kind of see how, as great as the ending of Empire Strikes Back is, it kind of snowballed into this shit storm that the Phantom Menace was. We'll get to that, but this ending, in my opinion, flows so well it's just so well done, because the tone and the pace doesn't change between the 2 characters. Like, they're both emotionally charged, because you get Luke as he's fighting Darth Vader, which in his mind he's like, I'm gonna avenge my father, and I'm gonna defeat you, and Darth Vader just toys with him.
Yep.
And then you have Leia, who's trying to find Han and trying to escape, because rewind a little bit, there's that scene, which one of the probably the best improvised scenes ever, where they had no idea what Han was supposed to say, because she said, I love you, and he kept saying I love you too, and I love you back, or I don't know, whatever they were saying, but it just seemed right. And then finally,
I know,
Kashkin was like, alright, let's just try to improvise this, and they went through a few takes, and he finally said, I know, and it was like one of the best.
That's it.
Oh,
that's a wrap.
Yeah, ship it, we're done.
Yep. Off to editing. Daily.
That is such a good line. Because it's not even like, you don't have to say I love you back. He's so reassuring. He's like, I know. And it's like, I know I love you too. But, so he gets trapped in the carbonite, which they're going to put Luke in next. And then they're going to take Leia and the Wookiee, and that's when he's like, argh. But, that ending, that's why she's trying to find her love of her life and save him. And then Luke's trying to find his father. Oh, shit.
Not a spoiler. Not a spoiler at all.
We were going to spoil that after.
So, Luke and Vader duel, and have probably one of the... it's definitely one of those duels where it's extremely one-sided, in my opinion.
But it's still the best one, because Luke kind of thinks he can do it. He has this ignorant, like, I can do this, like.
And then when he's getting hit and pelted with boxes by Vader,
and he swings and misses.
It's just like, I regret this decision so much right now.
But even then, if we, like, in the beginning, they're kind of, you can kind of see Darth Vader's like, he's like one-handing it while Luke has two, and he's like, whatever. And then Luke does the jumpy thing out of it, and he's like, oh, impressive, and he hits him with the gas, and you're like, oh, Luke is kind of doing this, and he even kicks him, and he falls.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh man, Luke And then it's like, and then Darth Vader's like, okay, I'm done toying around. I'm going to destroy you now.
Yeah, and they did a very good job when filming these scenes. If you notice, there's one section where after Luke gets blasted out of the window, he's looking for Vader, and he goes down this hallway, and Vader just comes out of this corner, draws the blade, and they do such a great job of making Vader look so much taller. Than Luke.
Was he like 6'3" or 6'2"?
Yeah, but the thing about that is that camera trick easily made him look more like 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, this guy is not to be messed around.
No, I think this is one of the moments you finally, like, obviously you saw him choke out the captain and just throw him to the side, but this is one of those times you're like, oh. And obviously he's killed now 2 of his admirals. He's killed an admiral and a captain. So you see that he's with this. This is where you see his, like, strength and, like brutality. Like, he is beating the shit out of Luke. He's hitting, and like Luke's like trying to defend, and then you get towards the end and he cuts off his hand, and then Luke,
which, you know, that whole hand cutting off is prompted by the fact that Luke nicked him in the shoulder pad. Just kind of like a little I'm like, really? You can't, that didn't even go through your armor and that's pissing you off?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he climbs out and he's sitting there and he's like, Obi-Wan didn't tell you. My James Earl Jones accent is the best.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
And he's like, no, he said you killed him.
No, I am your father. And then immediately...
By the way, everybody, it's not Luke, I am your father. It's not that. It's, no, I am your father. I hate that so goddamn much. And what's funny is it's like, it's one of the greatest quotes ever, and everyone fucking misquotes it. Luke, I am your father. No, that's not how it goes.
So Luke, because with this revelation, immediately just goes, "All right, suicide later, man."
Well, no, he's like, "We can rule the galaxy as father and son. Come with me. Together we can defeat the Emperor." Which, there you got. It's like, oh, look at you, conniving little Black Knight. And then he falls off, and then he's like, "Damn it, I have to be a lapdog again."
Crap.
But, fuck. Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Luke falls down, goes into the little shaft, gets shot out the bottom of Cloud City.
I remember now. The way they hid that because no one knew that. Even because obviously most everyone know that the voice actor for Darth Vader is James Earl Jones, and the actual actor who played Darth Vader who is like no longer allowed to be in any of the Star Wars stuff. He's been disowned. He's been disowned by Lucas because he said too many bad things about the prequels, and he was mad that they replaced that he didn't get to reprise his role in Revenge. But I believe he said on set, Obi-Wan killed your father, and that was supposed to be the twist. And they told Hamill, like, right before they shot that scene, they said, "Look, you can't tell anybody, but really what he's gonna say is, I am your father." And then Hamill, and I don't even think Irving knew. Like, the only people that knew were Kashkin and Lucas.
Yeah.
And then they told him, and people, like, I remember that was one of the first times that, like, one of the first major twists in movie cinema history where it was like, what? I guess now it looks really cliche, like, oh, look, he was your father. But at the time,
yep,
that shit was pretty mind-boggling. And I think his facial expression is pretty shitty and like, ah! But, you know, and then, like, he does that kind of valiant, like, all right, I'm gonna defy you. And to go into one of the
I would rather die than...
Yeah, than serve with the dark side. And I think one of the edits, they add him going... as he falls.
Doing the Emperor's scream from Return of the Jedi, no less.
Which just makes no sense, because that's not... Like, it's one of those things like, does George Lucas know what his characters are supposed to be? Because he's doing it out of defiance, not... I guess you could get scared once you fell, but... I don't know. This doesn't make any sense to me. So he falls, and then he goes in the little thing, and he pops out, and he's hanging there, and...
Calls to Leia,
and of course him and Leia have a link, which we won't understand until later, but she comes back, and they rescue him, and they fly away, and then you see them in the Nebulon B cruiser, and he gets a little prosthetic hand, and then Lando and Chewie go on to find Han Solo, which that ending, in my opinion, like I'll say it again, I'll run through this again, just the tone of desperation on both stories, both story arcs, the tone of despair on both of those story arcs is so well done. Like there is like lots of times when you have a different setting and different like thing that's going on in an ending, things change when you the different shots. Like your mood and the tone changes. This doesn't change that much. Like it's a little bit more maybe quicker pace when it goes to Leia and they're trying to escape and like, all right, we gotta get out of here, compared to Luke where it's like I'm fighting Darth Vader. But as far as the general like, I know I'm saying tone a lot, but as far as the general tone of the movie, it stays the same, which is not the fucking case for Return of the Jedi, which we should get into now.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi, because we're running on so much time already talking about, hour and a half in. God, what is your problem with Return of the Jedi?
Well, I love the first part of Return of the Jedi, which I do wish they had kept the deleted scene where you see him create his lightsaber.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I do like the fact, though, that instead of that, it's more mysterious when he walks in, and you're like, is that Luke? And he doesn't say anything. I wish they had done it to where, because the scene, it shows him turn his lightsaber on, he gives it to R2-D2, and then R2-D2 and C-3PO start talking. And it kind of introduces everything, like, oh, Lando and Chewbacca, we haven't heard from them in weeks, and da-da-da-da. And you're like, oh, instead of how the movie opened up a little more mysteriously, where it's like you see Lando and you're like, oh, look, it's Lando. Which I like that. I just wish they had a scene where you saw Luke make his lightsaber, which I don't know, maybe they didn't think that would fit. I don't know. Overall, I think the beginning of that movie is fine. I think that whole segment of scenes is fucking awesome. Like, that's one of my favorite parts of that movie, and that's the space battle where Luke, I do think Boba Fett died a little. His death was a little sad. Boba Fett? Where?
And then in the EU, he kind of, gets out of the Sarlacc pit with help from another bounty hunter by the name of Dengar.
It definitely is a pretty cool scene, and especially for special effects, the barges flying through the air, and the Rancor fight was really cool.
Yeah, I mean...
And it's one of those things like, maybe you should have kept your lightsaber with you, Luke. Because that would have been really useful when you fought the Rancor.
I mean, it's reaching for you. You could cut its fingers off.
Remember when you cut the Wampa's arm off with your lightsaber?
Same concept, only bigger execution.
I do like what they say, where Luke uses a blaster, and he's not afraid to use a blaster, and he's okay with using a blaster. Like, yeah.
Unlike other Jedi, he's not afraid to use a gun if he needs to.
So uncivilized. What? You just used that to kill General Grievous? What? That scene is awesome, and I love how Han Solo, after being in carbonite for a year.
No, actually, the span between Empire and Jedi is, I think, 3 or 4 months.
Okay, I'm sorry. For 3 months, he's been encased in carbonite. He pops out, and then an hour
later. See.
An hour later, he's like, I'm getting better, Lando. He shoots the tentacle.
And can we also talk about one of our favorite phenomenons when it comes to Han Solo in this movie? Han Solo's faces.
Oh yes, this is where Han Solo starts making faces. Because I think me and you both agree that he did not want to be in this movie.
Yeah,
he wanted to die at the end of Empire, which thank God he did.
Yeah, and then even then with Return of the Jedi, he was like, I think I really want to die heroically to save the other main characters from destruction or something like that.
George Lucas won't allow it.
No,
I gotta sell those.
You gotta be the hero.
I gotta sell those action figures.
Yeah, I gotta sell me them Celebration action figures from the end of the movie.
Leia kills Jaws.
Yeah, kills Jaws. Jabba the Hutt.
Jaws the Hutt.
Who is easily one of the best characters in the trilogy.
Ooga booga Solo.
Just a really fat slug.
Yep.
On a stone slab.
A lot of people, I think, say that's objectifying women with the outfit, but at the same time, he's a fucking perverted fat slob.
He's Gabe Newell with...
You take that back. You take that back.
He's Gabe Newell with the pet Rancor.
You could see the eyes I'm giving Danny right now. But they rescue Han.
Half-Life 3. He's just got this.
This hurts.
He's got this jewel case on the wall. It says Half-Life 3. It's encased in carbonite, and it's like, I like my trophy just where it is, and he won't unfreeze it.
This hurts you.
Yes, it
but,
does.
Okay, so they leave, and then he's like, "No, R2-D2, we're not going to meet with Fleet. We're gonna go to Dagobah." And they get there, and then he has that conversation with Yoda about how
Obi-Wan shows up.
All he has to do now is kill Darth Vader, and he's like, "I can't kill Darth. He's my father." And Obi-Wan shows up, and they're talking, and he leaves, and then that's when
what I told you was true from a certain point of view.
Which is great because Alex probably looked back and was like, "Yeah, I did that pretty well. I'm a fucking good actor."
Oscar Gold!
I know. But he finds out he has a sister who he made out with in the last movie. Incest. Oh,
big mistake.
Like, I wonder if that comes up during like family dinners afterwards. Like,
so
they're talking like no, they just bring up Hoth in general and like, "Oh, I'm glad you found me." And
like, do you think Mara Jade brings up Hoth?
The Bacta scene. I have to go to the bathroom for a second. But then they meet up at the fleet, which, God, those Mon Calamari cruisers are fucking awesome. Definitely coolest battle cruiser.
Introduced to the best commander ever in the Rebel fleet, and that would be Admiral Akbar.
What? General Madine.
No, Admiral Akbar. It's a trap!
Admiral, we have enemy ships in Sector 47.
It's a trap!
But we get the plan of the Emperor has made a grave mistake. Oh no, actually, he hasn't. Spoilers. But they're going to devise a plan to kill the Emperor and the second Death Star all in one blow.
And everything's going to be just happy.
All those old Death Stars are going to be. All the Star Destroyers are also going to be right next to it when it blows up, and there'll be no more fleet, no more Imperials.
Because only killing the Emperor in a battle station will completely destroy the Empire. I mean, they don't have the entire galaxy under their control. I mean,
Moffs.
I mean, let's think about this in context.
Practical sense.
Yeah, in context to our world. We've had instances in the past with the United States with the president being killed. Did that stop us? No,
but I don't think that we were hated by every single person that lived under, the government was hated by every single person.
Well, not yet, anyway.
And also, you don't have a figure as polarizing as the Emperor. Without him...
I don't know, dude. Dick Cheney.
Let's go hunting, Derek. No, thank you. I will pass on that.
Good.
I mean, unless I have the gun and you don't, then I think it's okay.
Let me teach you how to hunt.
Maybe I'll just stand behind you the whole time. What? No, it's not behind me. Oh, God. But, so then they launch their attack, and fucking Luke decides he's going to go on the ground crew, and he fucks it all up. He gets there, and he's like, "Oh, Vader's on that ship." And then fucking... Han Solo's an idiot. He's like, "There's lots of command ships." No, actually, there's only one Super Star Destroyer.
Command ships. Let's look. There's only one that's ridiculously huge.
Well, there's technically two, but the other one's on Coruscant right now, on the planet, with towers on it. So technically, that doesn't count. But this Executor is the only SD right now, and I'm pretty sure if Darth Vader's on a ship, it's probably that one. So Luke automatically fucks it all up, and they get down there, and turns out to be a colossal trap anyways.
Yes.
But the airspeeder, or the speeder bike scene is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
I think that's the pod racer scene of this
trilogy.
Yeah, where it's let's just throw something in there that's cool.
It definitely didn't go on anywhere near as long as the damn pod racing.
No, it didn't. And
thank God for that.
It's still, it was obviously used as a plot device to separate Leia from the group, and then you and then you beat the cute little teddy bears, which are creepy as all hell in the Blu-ray edition, because it's George Lucas was probably sitting in his office one day. You know what would really creep people out if the Ewoks could blink. I still think the original idea of it being on Kashyyyk would have been so much cooler. Because then you get like Wookiees. You get Wookiee slave laborers.
Which makes perfect sense.
And
makes more sense.
And then when they revolt, they can actually pick up a stormtrooper and throw him. Unlike throwing rocks,
it makes so much more sense.
But Wookiees aren't marketable.
If you were dealing with Wookiees than Ewoks.
Wookiees just aren't marketable.
And I guarantee if Ridley Scott had his way, it would be Wookiees. And there would be a Jedi Wookiee.
It's a shame, because I think that would have made a really cool ground scene, too.
Because Wookiees, to me, make more sense fighting stormtroopers than Ewoks. They really do.
You didn't know that even though that armor is supposed to stop blaster bullets, it's very bad
against you objects. Throw a rock at it and they die.
Yeah, it reverberates the jewels.
This is supposed to, block high concentrated amounts of energy.
Not unless it's physical energy.
Unless
the kinetic energy, it can't stop it.
Unless it's like the kinetic energy of an arrow. That just right there.
That is the best scene, because they fire off a volley of arrows and just stormtroopers fall down.
They just fall over, and I'm just like, but they have no arrows sticking out of them.
What? Like, maybe the joints I can see, but why are they falling over dead? Like these little they're not even like longbows, like British longbows that that fucking shoot arrows. These are like little short bows that will shoot an arrow 30 feet. Yep. But we get there and Luke's like, I gotta leave, and he turns himself in, and there's that great scene with him and Darth Vader where they talk, and Luke drops the good side bomb where he's like, "There's still good in you.
I can feel it."
And Darth Vader's like, "Oh, this is your new lightsaber." And they go meet the Emperor.
Who, by the way, the Emperor is such a great...
Probably the best part of Revenge of the Sith.
Probably even more so than a lot of other...
Why did I say Revenge of the Sith? I'm sorry. Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. He's definitely a more... in the original trilogy, of course, you hear about him behind the scenes and all of this, and then it finally reveals him, and you look at this guy, and he just looks like this deformed man with a cane, sitting in a chair. Mm-hmm. And this is the guy who is supposed to be the devil, commanding this guy in a 7-foot-tall, iron-lung samurai armor, this completely non-threatening old man.
Which is upsetting, because they kind of, they fix that in Revenge, where he's he turns into a warrior, and you're like,
I never really envisioned him of being that much of a
sword fighter?
Yeah, of a swordsman. He was always more of the sorcerer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's...
Which I guess is why he lost to Dooku.
Yeah, that's...
I'm sorry, Windu, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because,
know your prequels, Derek. I don't give a fuck.
Know your wars. At
the end of the Clone Wars, Admiral Akbar suicide bombed into the Death Star.
Okay. I have no idea what the hell you just said, but whatever. I can just see Admiral Akbar in a B-Wing now going, "Let's go out together, bitches! I'm back!" It's like Independence Day now. That'd be a great movie. But, he's the sorcerer, and he's got his Black Knight here, and then, the White Paladin comes in here, completely disarmed, and Palpatine makes fun of him for having a laser sword.
Before the prequels, it was okay that he wore an all-black outfit, because... goddamn, I love that black outfit.
Yeah,
so much.
Luke's costume in Return of the Jedi is awesome. And
he's so good.
They would keep that later on in the EU.
Yeah, it was just his black...
Yep.
God, it was so good. And it's upsetting that... Excuse me.
You're yawning.
I know.
Talking about Star Wars?
I know.
What?
The prequels, they're always in that Jedi garb, and then, the bad guys are in black.
Yeah.
And in this one, he is a good guy, and he's in black. And he looks just like his father, who's all in black, except he actually has a face and arms. But before the ships get there, and this is, I guess they tried to do it in Revenge of the Sith, where they made that cool space battle in the beginning, which was marginally enjoyable. I enjoyed it when I saw it in the theaters. It was pretty fucking cool. But to this day, I don't think any space battle in the Star Wars universe will ever compare to the Return of the Jedi space battle, which is how awesome it was. Because they get there,
shield's still up.
Yeah. How would they know we're coming? Oh no, how would they be jamming us?
If they don't know that we're coming. I'm getting no reading. Are you sure? That's a very good question, Lando. If your sensors are being jammed, how can you detect if the shield's still up?
Shoot some lasers.
Wouldn't the shield only deflect blaster bolts? Why couldn't you fly through it?
No, because they have to lower the shield for the
that's true.
Transporting down, which makes no sense because couldn't they just the shield didn't cover the moon? I don't know, whatever.
But
they do have to lower the shield for Darth Vader to get in the Death Star at the beginning of the movie, which that's where you actually get introduced. That's actually a good opening shot where it's like, oh, Death Star number 2, okay, shit, because they open the movie with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do they? Or do they open with?
No, they open the movie with that. And
then they go, yeah, that's right, then they go to Tatooine, I'm sorry.
But,
I know you're Star Wars, sure. But, the space battle, in my opinion, was so fucking awesome, because you have Admiral Akbar kind of trying to run things, and then you have Rogue, I guess it would be Rogue Squadron. I don't think he says Rogue, though, I think he says Red.
Gold.
Does he say Gold?
Probably Gold Leader.
Is Wedge the Gold Leader?
No, he's Red Leader. Lando's
He's
Gold
Red Leader,
Leader.
even though he should technically be Rogue Leader.
Yeah.
He's Rogue Squadron, unless they just abandoned that call sign for that movie.
Yeah, I have no idea why they would have done that.
But that movie also has the greatest mystery in any Star Wars movie or game or EU ever. What the fuck is a Mon Calamari cruiser doing being a medical frigate? It makes no sense. Why you bring a medical frigate to a space battle?
And I've already told you why they would bring it.
It's a Mon Calamari cruiser. It's a battleship.
No. That's not a Mon Calamari cruiser. A Mon Calamari cruiser is what freaking Admiral Akbar is in.
Yes, and that's what the TIE Fighter runs into.
No. That's not what the medical frigate is. The medical frigate is the same exact ship design that you saw at the end of Empire Strikes Back.
That's not what the TIE Fighter ran into.
That's what he's talking about. He said that they're heading for the medical frigate, and if you notice, there is still a fighter that they engage after weaving through it, that the Millennium Falcon, in a dogfight, mind you, completely decimates after they fly under it.
Either way, what the hell is the medical frigate used? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
There could be ground forces that are wounded. And
like the whole one doesn't have an infirmary that will protect people who are injured.
Yeah. And then you go back down to, I think it's the ground battle. Or do they actually engage in the duel in the throne room?
Honestly, this is where I'll start to talk about how this movie starts to fall apart. Because, in my opinion, the original saga goes, Empire Strikes Back is the best, down a few notches is A New Hope, which suffers from a few pacing issues and directorial issues, and then down quite a few notches is Return of the Jedi. God damn it. Return of the Jedi. And Return of the Jedi is a fine movie up until the ending, where it starts to have really bad tone issues, where you go from dark, brooding, temptation, it's Luke is being tempted, and Luke obviously struggles with falling to the dark side at a point, and it's super dramatic, and then it goes to the ground war, where the Ewoks are flying through the air doing Tarzan sounds. That is a major, major tone shift. That is not, unless maybe, if those Ewoks had flown through the air and then got blown up to pieces, and it gotten sad music. There's a few parts in the ground war where, sad things happen, and it's kind of okay. But, for the most part, each section has a different tone to it, because the space battle is fast, it's action-packed, they're flying around, they're shooting down TIE fighters, and it's awesome. I wouldn't change it. I would have no problem if they had changed Endor to Kashyyyk, and they had the ground war be a little more bloody to kind of correspond with the duel, where it's kind of dark and oh shit, things are going down, and then you have a fast, action-paced space battle. I don't care about that tone shift. I fucking love that space battle, but then you go from the space battle, and they're fighting, and it's back to the throne room where it's slow, and the Emperor's slowly trying to turn to the dark side, because he understands that Luke is almost as powerful as Anakin was, and that this could be his Padawan that he wants, and if Luke kills Darth Vader, there we go. Now I have my new apprentice.
My ultimate apprentice.
Yeah. And then it goes to the ground war, and it just keeps in this... It does it a few times where it's really noticeable, but for the most part, it's just too much. And then they blow up the shield generator, which was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is the explosion. You're like, oh my god, everyone's dead now. Like,
and Han Solo just gets back up.
They did not run far enough. That explosion's way too big. But then they attack the Death Star, and that is where, if I was Lando, I'd be like, well, I'm gonna stay out here with the remaining fighters. Wedge, you can go in there and do your thing, because I have no idea why they flew the Millennium Falcon inside of that Death Star.
That was such a huge mistake.
It makes no sense. Because, like, mind you, like we said earlier, the cockpit is on the far right, okay? Like, he has to hug the right wall as hard as he can and hope that he doesn't run out of room. And then they have a great scene where Admiral Akbar in his brilliance is like, we have to buy them more time. Concentrate all firepower on that Super Star Destroyer. And I like this scene, but it bothers me at the same time where they blow up the X-Wing and then they hit the A-Wing and the A-Wing is out of control. And right before this, they blew up the bridge deflector shield, and the A-Wing runs into the bridge of a ship that is like 20 miles long, mind you.
Yeah.
And probably has 5 other bridges, I would only assume.
Well, it only has one command bridge.
I have a feeling it has a bridge full staff with support units that could easily take over operations of this ship. Like in a realistic sense, if you build a ship that big, I would have 4 other bridges and one that was one command bridge, and then one that was staffed with like people who were in support roles at the time who could easily take over operations.
Well, I guess that's why this is a fantasy movie.
Exactly, like it's a James Bond plot, Eric, but he hits the bridge, and poor Admiral Piet, because I have a soft spot for him, but he gets run over by an A-Wing, and then the Super Star Destroyer plummets out of control and runs into the Death Star, and probably has one of the worst looking special effects ever, because that Death Star looks bad, and it is a cool way to look how in like this massive ship that's 10 miles long, or like 11 kilometers long, looks so insignificant compared to the Death Star. And then I think he goes back inside, and then they start fighting. And this duel is a really good duel. I like this duel a lot. Really good. Now it's father versus son, and Luke doesn't want to kill him, and Luke every now and then is like, "I won't kill you," and lowers his weapon. He's like, "Ah."
You're wise to lower your defenses.
And then the jump cut.
Yes, the famous jump cut, stunt double jump cut of the century.
It wasn't that bad. It didn't bother me that much.
I just look at it and I kind of go, "Heh, okay." Cool.
I know, but the scene where he kicks Darth Vader and Vader falls down the stairs.
That is like, I'm looking at that and I'm just going, oh, that is so bad.
Got like a man who weighs a ton and he's floating through the air.
Yeah, and he's doing flips.
Which I argue he's using the Force to help him stay up. That's my argument. Like he's obviously pushing.
You know what I think it is? I think it's this thing called wire work.
Because they did not want him to roll around in that suit and break shit.
No, probably not.
You had Darth Vader doing an amazing trick of trying to goad him into getting angry, and he was like, if
you won't be turned, then perhaps your sister will.
Well, no, before that, he says something, and Luke thinks of his friends, and he thinks of Leia, and then that he fucks up, and then Vader finds out about Leia, and it pisses him off. And that's when you can kind of see that Luke kind of went to the dark side. I don't think he went to the dark side. I think I disagree with you, because you said that, what did they say in the book or something?
Yeah.
I disagree. I don't care if it's
he goes to the dark side because he strikes down Vader in rage.
He doesn't kill him, though, which I think if he fully went to the dark side, he'd kill him. I think he got really angry and he kind of used the dark side for a moment. And then he hits him, and then he cuts his hand off, which is a great... I will give Lucas, he does have these great way of doing poetic, like, rhyming things, like, cuts his hand off, and then he looks at his prosthetic hand, and he's like, oh.
And then looks and sees, oh, wires. Oh.
Yeah.
We're the same.
Yeah, and then this bothered me too. I understand they had to make him do it, and he throws his lightsaber away, and you're like, wait, what? Why did you do that, Luke?
Luke, you dingus.
No.
Then the Emperor displays his power. Because up until this point, he's just been a completely...
insignificant person.
Well, no, not insignificant person.
Well,
just like
in the battle sense.
An unassuming, like, I am unarmed, you know.
Strike me down with your...
Yeah, I'm unarmed. I can't fight you at all. So then he shoots lightning from his fingertips.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh yeah, well, I am unarmed. I can't harm anybody. You're electrocuting this poor.
Remember this because in Revenge of the Sith.
Power, unlimited power.
Yeah, he's like, I can't do anything. Mace Windu, fuck.
Yeah, so you get that, and Vader finally redeems himself by picking the Emperor up and throwing him down into the reactor of the Death Star. Electrocuting Vader.
Was it the reactor or was it just like a
No, it's
power shaft?
It's the reactor.
Okay.
Yeah, it leads down to the reactor.
It's also noted that because he's a metal suit, he picks up the Emperor, who is shooting lightning at the time, which is one of the reasons why Darth Vader dies. It's not because he cut his hand off. It's because he fucking picked up the Emperor.
Electrocuted.
Yeah, and he's fucking metal, which is just short-circuited everything, and so he's like dying. And I think that's one of my favorite scenes in the whole entire franchise, where he takes his mask off and he's like, "Let me look with you with my own eyes," and you're like, "Aw!" And then you take his mask off and it's this like hideous-looking man, and you're like,
and then it's like, "Oh no, CG Hayden Christensen!"
Thank God. Kill it with fire.
Could have happened, man.
And he escapes, and then they blow up the Death Star, which is another fucking cool scene. Well, they shoot the reactor and it blows up.
Yep, and they all escape.
And the TIE Interceptor, which is like 3 times as fast as a Millennium Falcon,
can't outrun the Millennium Falcon to escape.
No.
That poor.
Maybe the engine exhaust from the Millennium Falcon kept it from getting close. Like, I don't know, but that poor. I was rooting for that pilot. I was like, go.
Please get out and just like join them down there for the after party.
Just be like, I'm done with these guys, man. And then one of the great scenes is the party afterwards. There's like helmets. There's stormtrooper helmets that they're using as drums, and you're like, oh,
that's kind of terrifying. Where are the heads?
What did you do with the heads?
Ewoks, are you guys homicidal?
Do you like eating your prey?
Right?
But I think that about wraps it up for the original series.
And Luke sees the ghosts of Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda.
And Qui-Gon.
Oh, of course, because Qui-Gon, whatever.
Which just bothers me. They put Hayden Christensen in it, and you have to wonder, like, he had no idea what Hayden Christensen looks like. Like, if that's the case, why didn't they use Ian McGregor instead of Alec McGuinness? Like,
why didn't they use the puppet from the Phantom Menace?
God damn it! Shitty looking puppet. By the way, what was your opinion on the No?
Oh, on that change to the Blu-ray?
Yeah.
With Vader screaming no and then picking the Emperor up and throwing him down into the reactor.
Like, I didn't think it was needed.
No. I already told you how I would have edited that scene, and you kind of went, eh.
Yeah, you wanted to add flashbacks, which makes no goddamn sense.
Well, no, not like flashbacks with audio, just like really quick flashes of...
him seeing, like...
seeing,
like, Padme.
No, of the thing with Mace and Palpatine, where he made that decision. Because it's the same situation. It is the same exact situation.
And he did the same thing, technically. He helped the helpless one.
Well...
technically, it's like, you did the same damn thing. You helped the one that was helpless.
What is it about you helping the people that have the lower hand in this situation?
So, maybe if you had, like, prevented this from happening, like, you could have prevented your mother from getting raped and killed by sand people.
Implied rape. You want to throw that in there. It's implied.
These movies are for kids.
It's rated PG, okay? It's
implied rape. Politics. A man getting burned on a volcano planet.
Taxation without representation.
Trade routes. Asian people. What's wrong with your face, people?
So, the original trilogy is a classic, obviously. It can't be beat.
It's safe to say my favorite movie of all time is Empire. I love that movie.
The only reason why I say Return is not because of the Ewoks. In fact, that's like one of the worst aspects of Return of the Jedi, and I hate that so much. It's because it's the point where the protagonist finally meets up with the actual main antagonist, and they have their, quote, showdown, which mostly involves the protagonist being electrocuted to death. And then, and then Vader kind of redeeming himself.
Until the new, what was it, the Dark Jedi trilogy or the New Emperor trilogy?
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, the Dark Empire trilogy where you get the young cloned Palpatine, which is just like, okay, cool,
They
whatever.
should have shot that movie in 99 when he looked young.
Jeez.
But, Coach... I guess we can.
It's culturally significant.
We can start the next podcast and.
Yeah, I guess.
We need to make this a 3-parter.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe the middle part. Maybe next part will just be games and like cultural aspects and that stuff, and that'll be shorter. And then maybe the third will be
prequels.
The third, we're gonna take a massive shit and talk at the same time, and then drink some cyanide.
We're gonna be filming from your local public restroom at your local national park,
where my son died.
Your son died. Until next time,
we're gonna break out the alcohol. That's pretty much what we're saying.
You don't have a place where people can find you on the internet, so you don't get an outro. You're not special enough. Yeah. You don't.
Shotgun Crocodile. Little Goose 91 over here signing out.
So yeah, until next time, Phantasm Mask here, signing out.
PWNcast.